And we're back. Max, UFC 260 over the weekend. There's some very interesting results to say the least, but I will let you dive into that right now. Let's hear your recap of the weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to get right into it and just recap the four fights that I previewed earlier on Friday. So that's Robertson Maverick, Almeida O'Malley, Luque Woodley, and of course Miocic Ngannou. So starting off with Maverick Robertson, this fight kind of went more or less as expected. Miranda Maverick showed up looking like the bigger, stronger, more explosive woman in there and just maximized that athletic advantage everywhere the fight took place. Pretty evidently just a level above in the striking technique and ferocity. And Robertson was just trying to hang there on the feet and not get hurt and look for her opportunities. And she kind of got so overwhelmed keeping safe in the striking in the first round. She didn't really even look for a takedown. Then I did really like the second round for her. She went with a pretty unconventional thing where she took the back on the body lock and then just dropped to the ground and pulled Maverick on top of her, but able to maintain back control. She got close a couple times. I can't believe two of the judges gave Maverick that round when Robertson had like almost 4 minutes of grapple control time where she was hunting submissions the whole time. Maybe better for optics to mix a little like ground and pound in there or something because they want to see damage. I don't know. I think it's hard to judge submission attempts even based on the MMA criteria, because you could make an argument that based on the criteria of like contributing towards finishing the fight and like damaging the health or longevity of your opponent, that a submission attempt should actually be rated for your opponent, because it typically often will take more longevity out of you and can break your spirit to squeeze and squeeze and not get it. So maybe the submission attempts not very highly regarded by two of the judges in that second round. She didn't have her hooks in for most of them, but I thought they were fairly threatening. And I really liked that when Maverick got up, she went right back to that body lock, fall from the back, takedown again. So I kind of had some hopes for the third round, but Maverick just came out too ferocious and didn't really let Robertson get her back again to set up that position. And yeah, pretty solid third round for Maverick, and more or less how I saw the fight going, where Maverick had such an obvious edge in striking. And maybe if you put them in a 50-50 position, Robertson wins. She was great following the hips, and once she had top control, staying on top, like flowing from being on top of a sprawl to the kind of 3/4 backside mount onto the backside mount to take the back, and just always staying, never getting swept or scrambled out, but not quite levels above enough to find the finish. And then when Maverick got on top, Robertson wasn't able to reverse part of that, probably the strength difference between the two. I did call Maverick as throwing a lot of leading body kicks in her last fight, which I thought would be to Robertson's favor, but she 100% cleaned that up. I didn't see one. So speaks to the fight IQ of Maverick, where you saw her doing something in her last fight that didn't work against her and I think helped her establish her range. And then in this fight, she took that out when it would have been a risk to her game and a path to defeat. So you've got to credit the fight IQ of Maverick. Looks like a great athlete. Pretty sick story that she was TAing her class while cutting weight Thursday before going to fight Saturday. I'm sure she'll be right back on her master's research and TAing. I think it was master's, not PhD. My mistake if I'm wrong about that. And yeah, she's looking like a good prospect for this division. Robertson maybe gonna be a little more underrated than she should be. She hasn't been finishing fights at quite the same rate that she was early in her career, but I think Talia Santos and Miranda Maverick, her last two defeats, are honestly could be top five in this women's flyweight division with the level of depth it has. So I'll be interested to see how those two, especially Maverick with her youth, proceed. Speaking of youth, the Sugar Show is back. Sean O'Malley, a little tongue in cheek, but I said he's got 3 finishes in one night to return the Sugar Show. And it was a vintage performance by him against a really durable, tough, hard to put away opponent. He thought he had it there in the first round with, I think, like a head kick to a straight that dropped him, tried to do the walk off, and it's 50-50. Honestly, I'm sure some refs would have seen that and called it. Like if you think your Xenia Rosenstrike, Alistair Overeem, very similar sequence, subtracting the giant lip bursting injury, but where the opponent goes down concussed against the side of the mat and the striker has an opportunity to finish because they have like such a clean avenue to punch and hurt them more. They feel like it's over, they stop. And in one case, the referee stopped it. In this case, the referee did not stop it. Got a lot of grief from the commentators. Did Sean O'Malley for that? But he totally, I think, for the most part, this worked out in his favor, other than wear and tear. He got to continue showcasing like a really solid performance where he just looked dominant in the striking all night, and he still got his finish in the end. Tried to do the walk off again, bit of a strange finishing sequence where Almeida kind of charged in. O'Malley just landed like a quiet, sneaky hook in there, and he knew he landed because he tried to walk off again and just shoved Almeida off. Almeida falls, rolls, ends up on his back, and his guard is up. His hands are halfway there, so the referee doesn't call it, and O'Malley, with enough wherewithal to at least be watching his opponent as he tries to walk off, realizes the job is not done, and just like cool as a cucumber strolls over at this casual pace. He looks like he's out for a walk in the park, not like he's about to just jump in there with one massive looping shot into the guard, which slept the already sleeping fighter. So kind of funny that that came right as DC was criticizing O'Malley for not finishing the fight, and now he's not going to have a finish. I think part of the criticism was just that instead of having a 1 round night at the office, he had a 3 round night at the office. But you think about the criticism of O'Malley about durability and wear and tear, and can this guy fight without getting injured? So having 3 rounds of time in the octagon where the opponent was trying to kick his leg and he was throwing his own leg kicks and he didn't get injured, I think is healthy for the stock of Sean O'Malley. He's not out of the woods yet. Like I said, that this is going to be a story for his next, I think I said 4 to 5 fights, so I'll say 3 to 4 fights now. He needs to get in there and show that he can get out without suffering some sort of freak ankle, leg, nerve, whatever injury before we start putting that behind us in our memory. But tonight, a great showing. And like I said, he looked dominant in the stand up all night, just maintaining his range really well. He mixed up the kicks beautifully. He was throwing like a teep to the knee with his lead leg. He'd throw a front kick in there, the spinning kicks, head kicks. He had some nice calf kicks as well. And then his bread and butter was just that 1-2, which he'd throw from straight and orthodox and explode out of his like safe range right into perfect range for that. I think a lot of guys with worse chins would have gone down a lot sooner because he was landing them at will all night. So great return for the Sugar Show, and I think he can more or less get right back on track to where he was before that Cheeto Vera fight. Looking forward to it, especially this new chip on his shoulder version, which I think makes him a little more entertaining for me. So the co-main event, Tyron Woodley, Vicente Luque, this fight certainly caught me by surprise. I think it was no secret to all the pundits that Tyron Woodley is in decline, and a huge part of that is just his fight strategy and style has become broadcasted to the entire world, including his opponent's fight camps, and they all knew what to do. And he did his best to flip the script in this one far more than I expected, coming out blitzing with those strikes, overhands, hooks, just throwing the kitchen sink from the second the referee said go. I thought the age showed because he tried to transition that blitz into a clinch takedown, and he had all this momentum going in where you saw Luque was just totally caught off guard. I thought he was going to get it for a second, but I think the difference in athleticism came up kind of key here, where Luque able to stay just high enough up and to get his balance and stop it. So I don't think Woodley came in really looking for a firefight fight. I think he came in just looking for a blitz, and off the takedown would have been preferable, but he didn't get it, so he had to keep blitzing, keep throwing, and he made it entertaining while it lasted. He landed a couple good ones, but just couldn't quite find that like one punch knockout shot. And as he kept swinging, Luque found his hook counter fairly soon after. And then from there, it was just a cleanup where Luque found a couple more shots to keep him wobbled, keep him backing up, and then probably merciful to end it with a Darce as he did. And I said going into this fight, I would pick everyone in the top 15 except Damian Maia against Tyron Woodley. I don't think I can say that about this version of Tyron Woodley because he looked way more dangerous. And I think he does find that shot on a couple of guys. But I don't think the UFC is going to be willing to pay him the contract he has in order to stop the hype of up and coming guys in the 15 to 10 range, because that just hurts the value of their prospects, and Woodley's not getting back in title contention at this point. So Dana had some comments casting doom and gloom on the UFC future of Tyron Woodley after this fight. You've got to give credit to him for doing his utmost to turn his career around at what I dubbed like the last chance. Went out on his shield, and that I think at least he knows he did everything he could. I mean, Vicente Luque is one of the best welterweights in the world, one of the most dangerous welterweights in the world, and Luque, or Woodley, excuse me, came absolutely swinging at him with his career on the line. So Vicente Luque, I mean, we all know. Tyron Woodley, we all kind of knew, so nothing changes after this fight, but still a really fun co-main event, which led into the main event. And I'm gonna struggle a little to talk about this one because my heart bleeds for Stipe. That was tough to watch. He got knocked out cold by Francis Ngannou, who put it all together. I guess that's the most important takeaway or point to harp on for this segment, is that Francis Ngannou has set a new standard for the heavyweight division that looks like it's going to be a fascinating viewership to watch people try and rise to that level, because he did everything so well in that fight. He mixed his technique and athleticism beautifully. He couched the threat and kept it poised but ready to go, and he got the best of both worlds. He didn't gas out, but he kept intimidating Stipe, just keeping that jab out there beautifully, mixing in just enough threatening punches to keep Stipe on the back foot and keep him from getting into his game, and then just unleashing the explosiveness at times. He had like that jumping straight in there. Stipe shot for one single leg, which Francis just kind of violently shucked off, and then like exploded with a very similar sequence to what you saw him finish JDS with. Just I thought it might be over then and there in the first round. He just exploded with hooks on him from kind of like a body lock position, and it was terrifying. Man, Stipe's chin held up like no one else's we've seen against Ngannou over the past few years. Everyone else has been out there after like one of those shots. He took a good 5 or 6. But in the second round, Francis finally found a jab straight. speaks to hiding that athleticism and power behind a more refined technique that made it harder for Stipe to read and deal with and predict and counter. And that 1-2, just like the jab wobbled him, the straight sat him down. Stipe again just surviving like almost no one has against Ngannou, but landing that counter shot was horrible for him because it got him charging in, and then he finally ate the shot that put him out clean. A perfectly technical counter hook by Ngannou, and then one overhand bomb for super necessary sake, unfortunately. And Francis Ngannou is the UFC heavyweight champ, and he's going to be really hard to take down, have fight ending power from the moment the bell goes, the technique to land it, and the patience to hide it and wait for it and not blow his load early. And it's going to be so interesting to see if he can stay at that level and for how long and what people can do against him